Hi everybody, I wanted to give just another short video to help you with the check-in for the media case study, the new literacies case study that you're working on now, um, to kind of get you started thinking about how to get started with this assignment. So the first thing you'll need to do is to really read through the assignment, again, to kind of get a sense of what the assignment will entail, and watch the video and write down any questions that you have. We have an open lab this weekend, so if you want to ask those questions, feel free to come to the open lab to do that. So read through the assignment guidelines, watch the video again to get a sense of it. Okay, so there's that. The first thing that you're really going to want to think through is choosing a time period that is significant to you and that you would want to focus on. And so I think it's best to really think through a significant moment where you had to learn something that's always really helpful, or where something changed for you. So adolescence is always a time of learning and self-exploration and really working through a lot of different things. So there's a lot of literacy practices in adolescence and late elementary, and we tend to remember those times. And so I think that that's a good space and time to think about. Sometimes also thinking about transition times. So for instance, if I were doing this assignment, I might focus on the time my teaching had to shift from face-to-face, which I'd been doing for more than a decade, to online. And how did I learn to really navigate that space in both in print, books and readings and articles, as well as digital resources, as well as community learning. I was part of a group, kind of a professional development type group that met for an entire summer to really work through how to transition an entire program online, or hybrid in that case, and really working socially through different things. So there's lots of different expressions of literacies that were happening at that time for me, and so that might be something I would choose. You could choose any other kind of time that's significant for you. I've had students who have focused on, say, a first pregnancy, or have focused on other kinds of learning moments, and that has been a focus for them, or any kind of significant change is generally what people tend to focus on for these kinds of projects. And again, I don't have this exact project for you. This is because this course has so much media in it, and to meet the needs of the students, this final project also has this. This final project, not surprisingly, is a synthesis of everything we've done in this class. And so it is unique to this class in that way. But there are some projects that were similar kind of to this project and have some elements. So I'm going to talk you through some of those to kind of give you a sense of what they would look like. But keep in mind, yours is going to be very different. There's a lot more focus on artifacts in this particular course. There is a lot of more focus on creating media that represents what you're talking about. So the way that literacies is understood from our readings, from the textbook and all of the articles, is slightly different, and the expectation that you synthesize that is more for these. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these examples. Also, the expectation that you create your media, and that you create your media pretty much around artifacts, is specific to this course. And so in previous courses, they could talk about media, but you're going to actually make media in different ways. You're going to make audio, you're going to make visual, you're going to make movement kinds of things. And so, and that's all stuff we've been doing in your blog post. So just know this is a synthesis of all of that coming together to look at your own specific literacies. And so that's something to keep in mind. But what I'm going to show you do have good specific ways of seeing literacies, and they do have some of those elements. So I'm going to just show you a couple of those. This first one looks at a specific year, and it was called a New Literacies Autobiography at that time. So I'm just going to tell you, this is just provide some context and provide some key examples. And so what's good about this particular draft is just looking at the examples that are given that are very specific, and then figuring out the literacy aspects from there. And so this particular 1984 draft is a good one to look at for being specific in your examples. Of course, you're going to make your media, and so that's different. But I think that this would be a good example for how to focus in on one particular time period and then looking at literacies within it. This is one particular year, right? And looking at literacies within that. So I think that that is a helpful example. This one from Miranda is a timeline of a particular moment in her life, and so it's helpful for that. And she does a good job of walking you through that particular timeline. She does it through different kinds of media examples. Again, you're going to make it, but she does a good job of looking at how she learned, how her what she learned shifted her thinking. And so that's what this example is good for, I think, in showing you. The last example that I'm going to show you is actually the best one in terms of a case study. The difference here is that this was an assignment that was asking the students to explore someone else's literacy practice. And so just know that that is the case. But in this case, the student does a great job of really having a clear overall point about that literacy practice, really narrowing down that literacy practice, and then describing it fully, both in the research and, in this case, interview. With the person, you are going to create media. Instead of the interview time, you're going to basically create your media, but just know that there's multiple ways of supporting it. In this particular case, she does research and narrows down her literacies to multimodality and numeracy. And in that case, because we had a different textbook, it was slightly different take on literacies. Keep in mind, literacies is big. It's a big field. But in this particular case, that's what she narrowed it down to. And we have different kinds of concepts, similar, actually, kinds of concepts in artifactual literacies and in your articles that you've read. So it won't be unfamiliar to you, but just know that that's what she's narrowing it down to. And it's a good focus. And you'll narrow it down to particular kinds of literacies as well. But she has good topic sentences. She includes her evidence. She explains her evidence. And in her case, her evidence comes from that research and from her interviews. Yours is going to come from research, from our course readings, the textbook, and your articles and your media that you create. And so, but this is a good example, I think, of how to narrow something down to a particular kind of literacy practice and then how to explore that. And so I think that this might be a good choice for you. Okay, so for this check-in that's coming up, really, or how to even get started on this project, I would say, is really choose a time period that's significant to you. And then most of you, well, there's one of two ways to do this. I will just say that. One way is to go back to the artifactual literacies and to the articles and find the parts that are most salient to you, that are most that you're drawn to the most, and choose 3 different themes or different ways of seeing literacies that you think might work for this project, and just start exploring them. So go with the research and the thinking and the framing of literacies first, and then go and find your artifacts. Some of you already will have artifacts in mind and media that you want to create based on those artifacts, and that's where you will begin. So you'll have some kind of sense of a time period, and you'll have a sense of different kinds of artifacts that you have from that time period, and then you'll go back and find the literacies. What do they mean? So either way, you're going to have to figure out what the overall literacy practice is that you're focusing on. You're going to need to narrow it down. It isn't everything that happened at that time. It really is the different kinds of literacies that were happening at that time for me, and here's proof with the readings and also with your media that you're making. But there are different ways to go about it. Choose your time period first and describe it. Why is it significant to you? And then choose first maybe the research, the themes from the readings that you want to focus on that you think are applicable to that time period, and then go to the artifacts. What are you going to do? What kind of media are you going to make, and what would apply there? Or start with the artifacts first, describe those and what media you'll create, and then go to the readings and figure out what that all means. And so there's a couple of different ways of going about it. They both get you to the same place. So just go with what works best for you. So for this first check-in, you will really need to spell out your context, your time period, and why it's significant to you. You'll spell out the different themes from the readings, and you'll spell out the media that you're going to make, or the artifacts if you're at that point, and kind of a sense of what the media will be for the check-in. So really, it's a very, very detailed written text. It's an outline, but it's written, not bulleted points. About what you think you might do at this point. And you're not going to be, it's not set in stone, but you really should be thinking about what you're going to be doing and kind of fleshing it out, because you'll want some time to explore that to see if it's true, if those literacies were were true, or if you want to put other things, you want time to create your media, you want time to do the readings, to reread them, some things, and to make those connections. So, but for right now, it's kind of a basic outline in written form about what you think you might be doing, and that's what your first check-in will be.